I stand here today a woman on fire, feistier than ever, eager for continued personal and professional development, and also ready for the cultural evolution we seem to so desperately need as a nation and as humans. And I'm standing in front of all of you remarkable, smart, courageous graduates, with full confidence that you are without a doubt, unhesitatingly, undeniably, unquestionably, the source of our much needed next wave of progress and enlightenment, and I am heart happy. Let me back up a bit. First, thank you so very sincerely for the opportunity to be here today with all of you on one of the most important days of your lives. What an incredible honor to be in the presence of graduates, 90% of who have already participated in at least one legal residency in locations all over the country in a variety of industries, finance, retail, government, trade organizations, and law firms, among others. How great is it to receive an honorary degree from one of the top 5 law schools in the United States for intellectual property, the pillar of economic growth and wealth creation? How amazing is it to be affiliated with one of the first among a growing number of female-helmed law schools? This is a community. Yes. This is a community I could not be more proud to join. Thank you, President Dean, Dean Carpenter, my dear friend, Associate Dean McCann, for your kind invitation to be here today. Thank you, Provost Jones, the UNH Board of Trustees, and Kathy Fletcher. Thank you so much for being so kind to me today. All right, let me answer a few of my most frequently asked questions right out of the gate, just to get them out of the way. Yes, I do know Tom Brady. He is pretty special indeed, and yes, on Gronk, Edelman, Gilmore, McCourty, both of them, etc., too. Yes, I get to work with Robert Kraft. He is brilliant and generous. I would jump in front of trains for him. His son, Jonathan, is also very important to me and one of the smartest people I've ever met. Dan and Josh are pretty great, too. No, I don't go to every Patriots game. I go to the home games. Yes, I do go to the Super Bowl. I've been to 6 in my 12 years at the organization. Pretty incredible, I know. Yes, I do get a Super Bowl ring. I have 2, and I'll be getting another one in just a few weeks. I think that just about covers those questions that I really do get asked all the time. But I'll be around after graduation if you have others. I'm going to hope that by then your questions have nothing to do with football, because that would mean that what I've said resonated. But by all means, ask me anything. Speaking of resonating, I'm a graduate of both the John M. Olin School of Business and the School of Law at Washington University in St. Louis. Being the, if I can do one, I can surely do 2, no kind of girl, I did a joint JD MBA, starting in the law school, leaving in year 2 to enroll full-time in the business school, and then splitting time between schools in years 3 and 4, sprinting across the quad to make it to classes. Not an easy task when the law school classes religiously ended 10 minutes late and the business classes started on the dot. So I had not 1, but 2 graduation speakers, one at my law school graduation and one later in the day at my business school graduation. And if I'm being completely honest, I don't have a single memory of either one, let alone what they said. So my goal today is to say something, at least one thing, that resonates with you, that you remember years from now. Let me set your expectations for the next few minutes. Being uber competitive, I of course watched lots of commencement videos on YouTube. Based on my extensive research, I would say that today is going to come out somewhere slightly north of Mindy Kaling's commencement address at Harvard Law School. I mean, if I'm lucky, she's pretty great. And way, way south of Oprah Winfrey at USC. I mean, Oprah. I don't remember a time that I didn't know I was going to law school. I mean, I knew it. In hindsight, I recognize how privileged I was, because it never occurred to me that it wasn't possible because I couldn't afford it, or that it wouldn't be attainable to me because of where I lived, or that I wouldn't get in because I was a girl. I know that privilege propelled me in ways not available to others. In any case, my dad was a lawyer, and I idolized him. I still do. But as soon as I was old enough to see my mother as my mom and the amazing woman she is on top of that, I knew that I was going to go to law school not to be a lawyer, at least not forever, but to be a businesswoman. My mom was very entrepreneurial, and while I was growing up, she ran companies for others and ultimately ran her own company. That's what I wanted to be, a builder of businesses. I was convinced that I could do that better than others if I had a law degree, and I still believe that's true. My inner entrepreneur was always existent. When I was little, my father would store his wallet on the shelf under the TV in his bedroom, and every night, I would come in, take the cash out of his wallet, count it, report to my father his budget for the next day, and then put it back in his wallet. To be clear, this was solely about financial planning, not about the money. I wasn't thinking about what he was going to buy me. I was his COO. That carried into high school. There I created a small business, totally exploiting my best friend, Sue. I invested in a clown costume, and for a small fee, I would buy a bunch of balloons, dress up Sue, and paint her face, and she would make a spectacle out of herself. The profit margin was small, and I didn't share any of it with Sue, and she didn't get mad about it, but she lost interest. That was my first very valuable lesson in business. There are layers to building loyalty, compensation, opportunity, career development, culture. They all need to be there in some capacity. Without them, you may have people who will work for you, but they will not stay. In college, I learned relatively quickly, thank God, that being a follower, not a leader, was not for me. Then I went to graduate school, and as I mentioned before, I did a dual degree, which meant that I graduated a year after the folks I started with. In my second year of law school, I wrote onto the Law Review. The editor was a friend of mine, now a year ahead of me and in his final year of law school. A smart, great guy. It was no surprise to anyone that he was hired by a white-shoe New York City law firm, Paul Weiss, Rifkin, Wharton, and Garrison. At that time, it was not typical for a WashU law school grad to make it to what I would call the ship, AKA the big leagues. I wanted that. I asked the dean of the law school if he would help me, but my dean was no Dean Carpenter. I was not the top GPA in my class, so he told me he had limited numbers of favors and couldn't use one on me. Please know that's the best response you can give someone like me, because you can't beat me. My final year, I was managing editor of the Law Review, the business person, of course. I also won every negotiation competition at the law school, and together with two friends in the business school, came in first in a business pitch competition. I was convinced these would be the distinguishers I needed. Surely these firms would want more than just the top GPA. I reached out to my friend at Paul Weiss and told him I had applied. My friend went straight to the hiring partner and was probably talking to him when I got my rejection letter. Remarkably, I got a call a week later from Paul Weiss inviting me to New York to interview. I remember saying, "Are you sure you're not making a mistake? You rejected me last week." They said, "Come anyway." I flew to New York, and when I got into the cab for the airport to go home, I said to the driver, "I just flew in for a job no one thought I would get, and I know I got it." He said, and I remember this, "I know you got it too. I feel it." We were right. For those who may be curious, I did run straight to the law school to let him know. And that was my first memory of the lesson of humility. Passive-aggressive boasting didn't feel nearly as good as I thought it would. Humility is a better high. Okay, so I entered Paul Weiss as an underdog, totally outnumbered by men from what was viewed as a second-tier law school. The firm distributed active matters lists that included the names of the associate, what we were working on, and where we went to law school. Of course, the partners wanted to staff up their deals with the Harvards and the Yales and the Stanfords, blind to the fact that once we graduate, where we went is just a statistic. How we show up and perform is all that matters. But that's how it was, and I knew that meant I had to prove myself and create my own destiny. No one was going to work harder or smarter than me. I used to study those lists and strategize in my head all the different industries and deals to which I wanted exposure. Then I would hunt down those partners and knock on their doors asking for work. Nights, weekends, it didn't matter. At first, they looked at me like I was nuts. Finally, one said, "Crazy woman, come in tomorrow." From then on, I did most every deal he did. I repeated this pattern with other partners. If you did interesting work, you were not safe, I found you. I wanted to learn as much as possible, as quickly as possible. In my fourth year, I got a call from a partner looking for someone, anyone, who could do a deal that had to be completed fast, and found me in the office at 10 o'clock on a Friday night. And side note, I am not proud that I spent most every hour of my early 20s in the office. Please, please, please do not do that. But you see, EMI recorded music had just entered into the world of new media. That's what digital music was called at that time. The major record labels were caught off guard by Napster and illegally traded MP3s. Unlike other majors, EMI hired a technology entrepreneur to put together an executive team to conceive new business models and revenue streams from digital music. He had just landed a $40 million deal that needed structuring, negotiating, and closing. The second time I spoke with him, he told me I was going to move to Hollywood to work with him. I laughed it off at first. He was a crazy tech entrepreneur, so very different from the conservative lawyers and business people I'd become used to. But then I remembered, I want to be a builder of businesses. How could I pass up this opportunity to literally build a business that didn't exist yet? My final hurdle was my family. I'm very close with my parents. I live across the street from them today. And before you say, what? Let's just say I haven't shopped for toilet paper or paper towels in years. They just automatically appear in my pantry. So there's that. In any case, at that time, I was living in New York, and they were in Boston, and I worked around the clock, and I barely saw them. I expected them to adamantly reject and move across the country. Here's how the call went with my mom. So, you've been offered the opportunity to become a business executive creating a new business that has never existed before? Bye-bye, we'll visit. I was living in Hollywood within 4 weeks. When I arrived at the Hollywood Records Tower, my new boss had told about 50 different companies that he would do a deal with them yesterday. So everyone was calling me to get theirs done. The only problem was that there were no deal structures and no agreements for anything, no precedents. We were making everything up as we went. Here's where everything I did at Paul Weiss paid off. I figured licensing music for new technologies was kind of similar, in a way, sort of, to licensing Calvin Klein underwear. And we were kind of like venture capitalists, investing music, not money, no? Well, actually, yes. I could build lucrative deals based on those structures. In my 4 years at EMI, we did more new media deals and made more money than any other record label. EMI was my first memory of knowing that I can always figure out a way to do things, to get things done. My answer never had to be no. If there's no direct route to get there, I'm going to navigate the side streets. I became scrappy. Soon, however, it became clear that the music business culture did not align with my values, so I left EMI and moved back to Boston. It took me 3 years after landing back in Boston to get to the Kraft Group. By then, I had made the transformation from a lawyer to a business person with a legal background. The Krafts were aware of that, but had an upcoming need for a new lawyer for the football team. The conversation was, we'll give you lots of non-legal work to do, but you have to do that lawyer stuff even though we know you don't want to. I said something like, okay, but I've never watched a full professional football game before. If the choice is between watching Project Runway or a football game, it's Project Runway every time. Jonathan Kraft responded, we are not looking for a football expert. We need someone who can do good, smart deals for the organization. Can you do that? I said, in my sleep. 6 weeks later, 13 hours of interviews and meetings, I became a Kraft Group employee. 12 years later, I'm a generalist, a jack of all trades. That makes it hard to create an easy-to-understand professional identity. I can't describe what I do with an acronym that starts with a C, and that gets a bit frustrating. But I love knowing a lot about a lot and being able to jump into virtually any situation and know how to figure things out. The Kraft Group is involved in a variety of businesses. I've been involved in some high-profile non-football and football matters. In football, if it ends in -gate, I've been in it. I've had many rewarding experiences, but for me, one stands out because it epitomizes for me an example of jumping in, figuring things out, and leading with purpose and heart. At the end of the 2017 season, we were lucky enough to participate in Super Bowl 52 in Minnesota. We decided as an organization that if we had the opportunity to participate in the Super Bowl, and that season, if you may remember, it literally came down to the last minute of the AFC Championship game. We were going to attempt a never done before by us, the NFL, or any major league sports team concept. We would build a pop-up television studio in Minnesota dedicated to Patriots programming 24 hours a day, up to 10 hours live per day, for the 6 days leading up to the game. We called the initiative the Not Done Network, and it streamed live on the Patriots site. We were proposing to build a fully functional television studio in about a week, and we could not start working on it in earnest until the game ended. So in a period of 1 week, on a very tight budget, we had to find a venue to locate the studio in Minnesota, design and build the sets. I actually worked with someone in Massachusetts because, again, who knew anything about Minnesota? Identify and engage on-air talent, and it was important to me that we have both a man and a woman treated equally, regardless of their experience level. Line up all the production resources, human and technical, deal with union crews and union requirements, set up a production office for about 50 people, procure craft services for production crew and staff, And once we knew we were going to be in 12,000 square feet of space at Mall of America, we wanted to invite fan interaction, so we designed and built a fan space around the sets with exhibits, games, fan experiences, and concessions. The effort involved about 50 people, a diverse group of people, full-timers, freelancers, local union crew, coming together in an urgent, chaotic, challenging way. This became an opportunity to lead with purpose and heart. We needed to immediately and at the outset create an instant community. The night before we turned on the lights, we convened everyone, and I told them that the week was going to be really hard. But we could do hard things by showing up for each other every day, making each other look good, owning our own roles, but also pitching in, helping out, do whatever needed to be done. In Belichick speak, that would be, there is no I in team, but there is an I in win. That week, wherever we came from, we were all colleagues and equals at the Not Done Network. It was a wildly successful week. No one could believe that we set up and executed a pop-up that rivaled the Veteran Sports Network. We lost the game, but for me, it was one of the biggest wins of my professional life. We built a business, created a rewarding professional opportunity for others, and got their loyalty and commitment, their very best in return. Okay, if you're still with me and not thinking about the graduation party that starts when this ends, thank you. I've spent time, maybe too long, on how I got to where I am. I did that because anytime I meet someone, I want to know their story. That's some of mine. But please stick with me just a little bit longer, because here's where things get fiery. I'm sure many of you have heard the story of the donkey who fell in the well. The farmer decided it was easier to bury the donkey with dirt than to get him out. Each shovel load of dirt ultimately created the steps for the donkey to climb out of the well. That story is associated with resilience, shaking off tough times and stepping up. But the bigger theme is what you choose to do with your experiences, your story. With every experience, you either rise or you get set back. Experience is the source of who we decide to become. It informs our choices. And life is full of a lot of things that we can't control, but we can control our choices. The choices we make every day, despite whatever choices we made yesterday, and also as a result of those yester choices. I'm not here to teach you anything. I'm here to share some of my dirt and some of my choices and my hopes for what you choose. Here are 8 things I hope you choose. If it doesn't support, lift, build, grow, develop, empower, or love someone, don't do it. Do not do it. Genuinely and authentically root for others. If you get to do amazing things, bring others with you. You may not have grown up with the same type of privilege as me. Maybe you have, and maybe you've been more privileged. But in any case, all of you UNH Law School graduates have now earned a privilege that will propel you in ways not available to others. Use that privilege in the service of others. Opt in. Women, lift other women. And if the opportunity is there, lift men. And men, you must lift women. In my experience, many men around me have benefited from what I call the BC hockey team effect. I'm not talking about BC per se. I could have said UNH or Stanford or any other school. I'm talking about the opportunities men share with their former teammates, their friends. How'd you get that job? Well, this guy I played football with at Syracuse called me. How did you know about that investment opportunity? My teammate from UNH told me about this great company and brought me in. I have no issue with this phenomenon. I think it is fantastic. What I'm saying is, open that up to the women you know. Share the BC hockey team opportunities with them. We all know that we have a long way to go towards equality, and it may feel like your one-offs make an insignificant impact, but that is not true. When you do that, you plant seeds of trees you'll never sit under, and that is as good as it gets. Be soft. Are you cringing when you hear that? Not a word typically associated with a lawyer, huh? But stick with me here. What I'm saying is build your emotional intelligence, your EQ, with as much earnest and urgency as you build your IQ. Operate from your heart as well as your head. Being soft like that elevates good leadership to great. EQ forces the focus on the people driving the bottom line, not just the bottom line. Make relationships your top priority and build all types of them. Inspire with hugs, the professionally appropriate kind, of course. Offers to be part of a whole that is greater than its parts, and the feeling that we're all in this together. I read a quote by one of our recent draft picks, a 6'3", 255-pound defensive end from Michigan, Chase Winovich. In commenting about Michigan coach Jim Harbaugh, who recently changed his approach to become softer, Chase said, "He's with us. He just wants us to win, just like we do. He wants to succeed, just like we do. He's not the pointer outer, like go here or go there. He's in there with us." That approach appears to have worked. Chase elected to delay entering the NFL to give a 5th year to Michigan, saying, "It's just a matter of hanging my hat on something, saying I came here to make Michigan great." That was a win for Michigan, and also a win for Chase, as analysts said that staying a 5th year improved his draft stock. Companies and its leaders need to convince you through clear and kind leadership, toughness balanced by tenderness, a thoughtful, inspiring work culture, a promise of opportunity and professional development, and a community you are proud to be part of, those layers I mentioned before, that you want to dedicate yourself to us and our company. We may get you without all of that, but like my best friend Sue, you won't stay. Hold us accountable. If we don't create a culture that aligns closely enough with your values, what you stand for, leave us. Note that this does not mean that companies and its leaders can't operate without ambition, urgency, and drive. It means we must do that better. When we do that, we get an army of loyalists who believe they are true contributors, authentically part of something really great, and that's when we get their best. So that means you need to know what matters, what you stand for, what matters to you. I believe we all walk around with branding on our backs. Mine is Glaser and also Kraft. Everything I do personally and professionally is with a sense of how I want those brands represented. I want to make them proud. And to do that, I've had to define specifically, and this is an ever-evolving process, what it is that I stand for, what matters to me. If you don't stand for something, you'll fall for anything. So figure out what matters to you. Perhaps it is the scourge of hate that infiltrates the media, the internet and social media, and is acting itself out in our churches, temples, and mosques. Perhaps it is shockingly awful legislation in Alabama. Maybe it is a variety of inequities faced by people of color. Maybe it is the senseless intolerance of sexual orientation and gender identity. Could it be educational inequality, or homelessness, mental illness, opioid addiction, or any of the thousands of other issues that require our attention and efforts? Figure out what it is, then stand for stuff with actions, not just words, even if it is hard. As Kyle Korver wrote recently in his incredible piece, Privileged, believe in something, and when you do, make sure people know that about you. If they admire you, look up to you, are inspired by you, make sure they know what you stand for. Work harder and smarter than anyone else. Aim high, do things that feel scary and uncomfortable. Navigate the side streets. Figure out a way to get things done. Don't let the setbacks set you back. If I included all of my setbacks in this address, we'd be here for a week or two. And some of my biggest professional setbacks have been recent. I really do try to view them as opportunities. Sports law is also one of your school's strong suits, so some of you may be looking at me in my role with the Patriots and saying, "She has everything I want." The truth is, I don't even have everything I want. I have what I call eyes on top of my head, which means I always want to do more and be better. So often it feels like there is more I can be doing personally and professionally. That definitely makes things harder than they should be, but I choose it. I choose to believe that I am meant for more, that everything I do is on a path to all I can be. We have to welcome mistakes, setbacks, and failure because we need them in order to learn. The key is to keep all of that as small, infrequent, and forgettable as possible. And while on that path, we have to be great wherever our feet are. Just kill it now, where we are, on the way to where we want to be. You are meant for everything you want. Choose that. 2 more. Keep your eyes wide and your eyes wide and your ears hot. Be a forever student and take yourself to places you don't get to be so you can see and hear and learn things you otherwise would not. Take an interest in your community in whatever way interests you. There are no short of issues to understand and address. Our future producers, consumers, clients, and employees are coming from all areas, all socioeconomic and socio-emotional backgrounds. And the more you know is literally the more you know. And the more you know, the more you can do. What I'm saying is find an area that interests you and support it, change it, impact it, jump in, participate with intention, all in. And be incredibly, authentically, emphatically kind. You will never regret being kind. And you will be surprised how much better your results can and will be when you make it a habit to lead with your heart. Get fiery, and feisty like me, I am rooting for your rise.